turn this down.
Play around with a bad football team, bad things happen.
I'm just here to tell you, Pack is back.
So that would be an L for today.
Hold on to your butts.
Shall we begin?
It's 9 to noon on a Tuesday. PA still dealing with load management, having some time off. That means we spin the wheel, and it lands on the head cheese today. Good morning, one. Good morning, all. I am Dave Sinykin, thrilled to be back in the 9 to noon chair with Brett Blakemore by my side. And we will have fun over these next few hours as we talk about a new champion crowned in the NBA last night. And lots of other fun stuff. Lots of NFL on the docket today. And no, don't worry. I understand what side of the river I'm on. I've danced this dance before. In fact, the Gucci's in the corner office have made it clear where my priorities should lie today. Later on in the program, I have been tasked with coming up with 5 nice things to say about the purple. And as I tweeted last night, it basically meant I had an all-nighter last night, having to study. I'm already not in the spirit of the game. But so we'll do that later in the 11 o'clock hour. One guest on the docket today, John Krasinski, kind enough to join at 10 o'clock to talk about last night's Game 5, the NBA season over, which in turn means the NBA offseason has begun. And I want to chat about the Wolves offseason beginning most priority-wise with the draft, which is next week. So Johnny Athletic joins at 10 o'clock. Otherwise, lots of NFL stuff, as I said, and other bits and pieces over these next few hours. No surprise last night, I don't think. I think most expected. It was kind of like when the Wolves destroyed the Nuggets in Game 6 by 1 million. And I know I was thinking, I'm sure a lot of Wolves fans were thinking, well, now you pissed them off. Now, beat them is one thing, but to beat them like that, you're going to get their best effort. Now, that didn't hurt the Wolves as it turned out, but I was a little concerned for Dallas after their embarrassment of the Celtics in Game 4, if they kind of awakened the beast. And clearly they did. It was not a game. It was a game for about 9 or 10 minutes. And then the Celtics go on a surge to end the first quarter, and they coasted from there, 106-88. Jason Tatum, the star last night, 31, 11 assists, 8 rebounds, but it was Jaylen Brown who won the MVP, which did cause some angst in the Twitter sphere last night. How can Jaylen Brown get it over Jason Tatum? Look at the numbers across the board. Tatum was higher, but I have no issue with Jaylen Brown winning the MVP. Early in that series, he made some key, especially in Game 2 late, key baskets to ensure victories for the Celtics. And, my issue with Luka when we talk MVP is always, I prefer to give award. I don't have a vote, but I prefer to award the MVP to a guy that can do it on both ends of the floor. Not that Jokic is so spectacular offensively. We kind of look past, but he doesn't get asked to do a lot defensively, and Double T makes that point a lot in the zone. There aren't a lot of big scoring bigs anymore that Jokic has to deal with. They're all playing away from the basket, and Luka's not asked to do a lot, he's asked to do a lot. He can't do a lot. Whereas for the Celtics, Jaylen Brown is asked to do a lot, and he confused, perplexed, and annoyed Luka throughout the series. Luka got his points, but he made him work for them, and I thought it was Brown's penchant for the big moment and his terrific defense throughout the series, and his stats were just a tick below Tatum's. No issue with Jaylen Brown winning the MVP. I could have made an argument for Drew Holiday and what he means to that team. And man, I go back when the Bucks traded for Damian Lillard and sent Drew Holiday to Portland. And Holiday, as a guy who grew up as a Bucks fan, was my favorite Buck. I just love everything about that cat. On the court, off the court, he's a great human being, and I hated to see him go, but when you can get Damian Lillard, yeah, you swallow and you take it. Now, obviously, the season didn't work out for Milwaukee, and we'll let it play out for a couple more years and see if they can maybe make another run. But I felt really bad for Holiday landing in Portland, and I thought to myself then, man, I hope he lands somewhere where he does have a chance to win again. He deserves it. And a day or two later, he's off to Boston, and that's just, anywhere but there, though. Did I not qualify my hope that he went anywhere but Boston? Because he landed in a perfect spot and had the ideal role for a team that I think we may look back on as historically great, this Celtics team. They finished, if you add up the regular and playoffs, 80-21 for the season. They went 16-3 in the playoffs. And while not a real deep team, I mean, they've really got six. They got the starting five in Porzingis, and obviously Porzingis was hampered by the injury and was not anywhere near himself after game one. But beyond that, I remember, heading into the season, I thought that was their Achilles heel. They don't have any kind of depth. But guys like Hauser and Pritchard come off the bench and just work into their roles just perfectly. And Pritchard hits another half-court shot, which was the dagger. It really was the dagger heading into halftime. I don't know what the lead went up to 19 or something. He did that twice in this series. A team that was just put together really well, and that core of four wing-type players, if you throw Derek White into the mix with the three guys we talked about, are so good on both ends of the floor that it makes it really hard to guard them, to play against them. And when that offense, and they're firing that ball around and throwing 4 or 5 passes in a possession, it's really hard to stop them. And they were really good on the offensive glass last night, which, after really getting destroyed on the boards in Game 4, they made the effort last night, and it was clear. They were up to the task. They played lights-out defense from the start, did not let Luka get comfortable. And I think one of the stories of the finals was just the average to below average play of Kyrie Irving, who was just so good against the Wolves. So good. And just whether it was the Celtics fans getting into his ear and into his head, the former Celtic who chose to leave, the Celtics gave him no free passes. And he even said, I think after game 2, that it bugged him a little bit. And you tell that to Celtics fans, yeah, that's all they need to keep it going. He was terrible. And it led me to wonder, and I'm sure a lot of Wolves fans listening to wonder as well, couldn't the Wolves have given them a better series than the Mavs did? Now, obviously, no way of knowing. And then you look at the 2 games the Wolves and Celtics played, they both went to overtime. They split. The first one was really early in the season, early November. Obviously, that's a lifetime ago. But the Wolves were nothing like the team they were in April, back in November. So with that small data size, 2 overtime games between the 2 teams, and yes, they both could have gone either way, but man, the one the Wolves lost in Boston, man, they had that game right there too. Just, you have to think and wonder, could the Wolves have given them a more competitive series? Because it wasn't too compelling. We're not going to remember these finals because we didn't get the great fourth quarters by and large in 4 out of the 5 games. So I don't know. It was anticlimactic, I would say. And a lot of these series late there were so many blowouts that it took some of the fun out. But the Celtics, very deserving champs, 18-time world champs, and for their fans, they finally passed the Lakers now with 18 championships to the Lakers 17. And I think it's instructive to just think about this team as we watch the Wolves hopefully kind of begin their contending path, that the Celtics have really struggled with this core the last few years in the playoffs. I mean, losing a Game 7 last year at home to Miami in the Eastern Conference Finals. They were a 500 team at home heading into this postseason over the last few years. And there have been, from Boston, loud shouts to break up Tatum and Brown, that you can't pay them both $300 million, that you can't win with them both. It's clear. And you got to give Brad Stevens and that front office a lot of credit for not listening to the noise, keeping that team together, and making shrewd moves to take the best they can to make those two guys shine. And trading for Derek White and Drew Holiday and bringing in Kristaps Porzingis, Stevens and that front office crafted an historically great NBA champion that was hard to root against. I grew up in Milwaukee as a Bucks fan, and the Celtics were always, the Celtics and Sixers were arch enemies 1 and 2, with the Bulls, who weren't that good, but they were Chicago, number 3. You don't root for Boston. They always win. Their fans are obnoxious. It's hard not to cheer for this Boston team. I mentioned my love for Drew Holiday. Al Horford, by all accounts, a true gentleman in this game. And what a night for him in his 17th NBA season. He entered these playoffs as the player playing the most playoff games in NBA history without a title. He had played 186 playoff games, and he finally won a title. That snaps that record. He also becomes the first player to be older than his head coach, who was a full-time head coach. That's never happened before, that a player won a title older than his head coach, if you don't count Bill Russell, who was a player coach back in the day. And you think about the Celtics coach, Joe Mazzulla was a Division III coach that Brad Stevens brought in, and when they hired him, there was all kinds of, you remember Udoka gets basically run out of town for some of his not PC dealings within the office romance, so he gets shuffled out. In comes Mazzulla to take over, and again, who? Really? The Celtics are going to hire this guy? And how good it must feel for him to climb to the top of the mountain with that group, and clearly a group that's built to contend now for a while. That core will be back. Al Horford has already said he's not retiring. He wants to come back for an 18th season in his age 39 year. So their core will return. I think the one guy they have to figure it out is Derek White. And what a huge night for Jason Tatum, who's listened to all the doubters. Can you win with him? Can you win a championship with him as your number one guy? And he obviously silenced the doubters. He had 9 assists in the first quarter, I think it was, last night. Finished with 11. And he will get a Supermax deal this offseason, the richest in NBA history. 5 years, $315 million. They will have 2 $300 million players on their roster, and yet still have the financial flexibility to keep guys like Porzingis and Holiday, and we'll see about Derek White, who's a key player for them as well. They've built things the right way. They're a bunch of good guys, it appears, and I had a hard time not feeling good for a Celtics team for basically the first time in my life. As long as we're on the basketball topic, I want to come back and celebrate the 100th birthday of Minnesota's first great and maybe all-time greatest pro athlete. George Mikan would have turned 100 today. I feel like it's worth a minute or two just to recall his career and what he meant for the NBA and how the game changed and how the Wolves might not even be here if it weren't for him. We'll celebrate the centennial birthday of George Mikan when we come back on The Fan.
Find our Mall of America street team all summer long out at our events. Ask about our Mall of America mystery cards where everyone is a winner. You can see where we'll be next. KFAN.com, keyword calendar. KFAN.com, keyword calendar.
Back with you, 9:19 on a Tuesday morning. Sinykin in for PA. Brett Blakemore by my side. It's 9 to noon on The Fan. Talking hoops, the Lynx remain red hot. They won their 4th in a row last night, 7 of 8. A 90-78 win against the Wings. Sounds like it was one of those games where they kind of walked in expecting to win. They're playing the worst team in the league. Their best player, Ogumbawale, was out. She's the number 2 scorer in the league. So you're playing the worst team. Their star is out, and they messed around with them. They were trailing, the Lynx were, late third quarter, and went on a 21-6 run, led by Natisha Heidemann off the bench with 17. Apparently she had turned an ankle in practice a day or so later. Hadn't done much since being traded to the Lynx, but she took her star turn last night and helped the Lynx escape with a win they expected to have in front of the largest crowd for the Lynx this season at Target Center, over 8,300. And I saw a note in the Strib, and I didn't double-check the box score just to make sure I wasn't reading it wrong. They made 23 free throws to the Wings making 1 in this game. So it begs the question, like, how many fouls were called? Like, how did they just miss a lot of free throws? I didn't look. So Brett Blakemore, check the Lynx box score if you would. 23-1 made free throws. I mean, maybe it's the fact that the Wings are just shooting from outside, not throwing it in, trying to draw fouls. You have to always put that into perspective, but that's a pretty stark difference. 23-1 made free throws. Lynx v. Wings.
I can confirm the Lynx went 23 for 24 from the line.
Very impressive.
The Dallas Wings went 1 for 3.
3
from the line.
3 attempts. So, yeah, I didn't see the game. I was watching obviously the NBA, but clearly they didn't make things too difficult defensively on the Lynx, who, as I said, made it 4 in a row. They are 11-3. And in the current power rankings I noticed on ESPN, I think the Lynx are number 3. So off to a very strong start, and they're back in action tomorrow. I mentioned it's George Mikan's would have been 100th birthday today, passed away back in 2005. And I just felt it was important to recognize him on this day and tip our caps to the first great and maybe still the greatest all-time Minnesota sports athlete. I don't know, he played in the 50s. I don't know if anybody listening to 9 to Noon right now watched George Mikan play. You'd have to be, probably in your 90s, right? I'd love to hear from someone. If you're in your 90s, maybe you know how to text if you're in your 90s to the Bradshaw and Bryan KFAN text line. But that's not the point. The point is, what a remarkable career, what an amazing impact he had on the NBA. In a capsule, won 7 championships in 9 years, had a short career, relatively short, retired after 9 seasons, obviously with the Lakers, the Minneapolis Lakers in the NBA. His first year was with a Chicago team in the National Basketball League, and then a year with the BAA, but then 7 years with the Lakers and 5 championships, and was the first legit big man at 6'10", towered above everybody else playing back in the day. Chicago kid out of Joliet, played at DePaul, and had a hook shot that he could deliver with devastating impact with both hands. He was ambidextrous when it came to his hook shot. But he was so dominant back in the day that they instituted several rules to try to make things more fair. They put goaltending into the mix. That was not a thing. He was blocking shots all over the basket. Nobody could score if Mikan was patrolling underneath the basket, so goaltending became a rule. They also added the shot clock because of George Mikan back in the 50s. So the most egregious game that made the powers that be say, wait, we have to do something. Because remember, it wasn't, I'm old enough to remember when there was no shot clock in college basketball. And this is, the 70s? Dean Smith's North Carolina teams famously would play 4 corners. They would just throw the ball. Player to player, like you're playing keep away, hot potato, for as long as they wanted. And I remember back then I was a big Marquette fan. I felt like Marquette always had to get past Carolina. And it was so frustrating because these guys would just bore you and just lull you into this sense of just shoot the ball, enough playing defense. So same thing happened in the NBA. And in a November game in 1950, the Minneapolis Lakers were playing the Fort Wayne Pistons. And the final score of that game, and the Pistons decided to play keep away. They knew they had no answer for Mikan and the Lakers, the perennial champs. So if we keep the ball in our hands, they can't beat us by that much. The final score of that game was 19-18. In the fourth quarter, The total score in the fourth quarter of the game was 3-1. 3-1. And that was sort of the straw that broke the proverbial camel's back, and the league instituted a shot clock in 1954 to prevent, I think it was 30 seconds to start before it went down to 24 later. The NBA also widened the lane because of George Mikan. He couldn't just put, there was 3 seconds, but the lane was narrower, so he could still be pretty close to the basket and not be in the lane and do his business. And they widened it to force him away from the basket a little bit. So all kinds of NBA rules that we just take for granted today were in no small part because of the dominance of George Mikan, who became, in his later years, the commissioner of the ABA. Again, if you're a child of the 70s like I am, the NBA was so cool. They're playing with a red, white, and blue ball. Whose idea was that? George Mikan. ABA had a 3-point shot. Whose idea was that? George Mikan. And it became so popular, and some of the stars of the college era were deciding to play in the ABA, that it didn't take long for the two leagues to merge. I remember having a red, white, and blue ball as a kid. Who didn't? If you're of that age, and you got this cool red, white, and blue ball that when it's in the air, that when it's like spinning, it's this kind of cool color when the red, white, and blue are all combined. So an absolute trailblazer when it comes to being innovative with the game, George Mikan. And read this morning, was not aware that at his funeral, some of the greats that followed him, Bill Russell, Shaquille O'Neal were there. Shaq offered to pay for the funeral. I don't know if he did. But he brought some of the all-time greats to his funeral to pay their respects for the path that he trailed, the blaze, what am I trying to say, the trail that he blazed? Yeah, I think that's what I'm trying to say. He was a trailblazer. And he would have turned 100 years old today. And he was the first great Minnesota sports icon. And I don't know that we've surpassed it. Well, we haven't. I mean, obviously, there's no athlete that's won 5 championships here. Who comes next to mind? Who's the second greatest? Is it Kirby? Trying to think off the top of my head. Any hockey guys jump to mind? That would be no. The North Stars didn't win.
No.
Football. We can bypass that sport. Killebrew, but again, it's about titles too. I mean, all-time great. So Kirby, but I feel like there's a gap. I think it's Mikan, and then there was nobody quite like him. And as 218 texter guy reminds us that Bud Grant was a teammate of his back in the Laker days in the 50s. So would be birthday number 100 for the late, great George Mikan today, the day after the Boston Celtics claimed their 18th NBA championship and became the second great NBA dynasty. First, it was the Minneapolis Lakers, and then it became the Boston Celtics, and then the Los Angeles Lakers, and then I guess the Chicago Bulls. And I don't think we've really had, I guess you could say Golden State if you want to. Don't know if they quite qualify on that level. But Mikan and the Lakers were absolutely the first. We'll pause here. Why don't we switch gears, talk a little football? I got some talkers I want to get to on the NFL side. Let's do that next segment. I certainly welcome your input throughout the program, by the way. Brett, I'll bring you into the mix as well when we come back. 800-320-5326 if you care to chat. Text on the Bradshaw and Bryant KFAN text line. Just type in 64686. Email us, booth@kfan.com, or tweet me at TCHeadCheese. It's 9 to noon. Sinykin for PA. Back after these.
Hailed as the nicest man in stand-up, 2021 Grammy-nominated comedian Nate Bargatze is headed to the State Fair Grandstand. You can see him on the Be Funny Tour when he takes the stage Saturday, August 24th. Limited tickets still available. For more info and to secure your tickets, head over to KFAN.com, keyword calendar. .35 on a Tuesday morning. It's 9 to noon. PA out
Again today, I'm Dave Sinykin in the big chair with Brett Blakemore until noon today. One guest on the docket. It'll happen next segment, top of the hour. Fan fave John Krasinski joins the program to talk about the Celtics' dominant performance in the finals. And as the offseason begins today, the Wolves offseason, with the draft coming up late next week, and the Wolves actually have a couple of picks, 27 and 37. Talked about George Mikan previous segment. It would have been his 100th birthday today. I mused, he's the greatest Minnesota professional sports athlete of all time. And I'm not talking about being born here because he's not one of us. He was a Chicago kid. Somebody tweeted me, Dave Winfield considered Minnesota's greatest athlete. That's a different conversation. That's Minnesota born and raised athletes. And we can certainly have that conversation on a slow day someday, and I'm sure it's been done a million times. And Winfield's for sure in the conversation, if not at the top. But we're talking about professional athletes in this state who are the greatest. And, I threw Kirby in there as a potential number 2 and was quickly reminded by 612 guy that the clear-cut number 2 is Maya Moore with 4 WNBA titles in her 8 seasons. An MVP, a finals MVP, a 6-time All-Star. She was even great in the All-Star game. 3-time All-Star game MVP, 5-time All-WNBA first team, 2-time All-WNBA second team. Great defensive player. She led the league in steals one year, Rookie of the Year. She's on the 20th and 25th anniversary team. Yes, Maya Moore would be number 2. Thank you for reminding me. Another text came in from 952 guy who says, as I recall, Bud Grant, who, as we know, is in both the NFL and NBA, said in an interview of all the athletes he had played or coached over his career, George Mikan was the best and most competitive he ever knew, and that's certainly saying something. Yeah, Bud saw an athlete or two in his years. If you're going to do a top 10, if you're going to put a Viking in the top 10, and we're not going to count Bud because he was a coach, I was a player, but he was more a coach. Is Tarkenton the greatest Viking of all time? I don't know. I'm not the one to ask. Clearly, there are more qualified people. But even Lindsey Whalen might be in the conversation if we're doing the top 10 great pro athletes in this state. All right, some football stuff. Brandon Ayuk of the 49ers. You saw this, Mr. Blakemore, who's on the phone at the moment, taking a call. Brandon Ayuk posted to his Instagram story yesterday a FaceTime call he had with rookie quarterback Jaden Daniels of the Commanders. And they're tight. They're buddies. They played together at Arizona State. And he kind of blew up social media yesterday when he posted his FaceTime call and told Jaden Daniels, they said they don't want me back, meaning the 49ers. They said they don't want me back. Now, Ayuk is in the final year of his deal. He's making $14 million this year. He wants to be paid in the Jefferson, Tyreek Hill. Who's the other guy that just got paid at receiver? I don't know why it's escaping me. He wants $30 million a year.
Yeah.
And the Niners, I don't think, have any interest in paying him. The Niners are constructed right now how the Vikings want to construct their team. They've got a quarterback on as cheap a rookie quarterback contract as you could possibly have. He was the last player drafted. They're paying him nothing. Only an undrafted starting quarterback could be making less money than Brock Purdy, which has allowed the Niners to build an all-star roster around him on both sides of the ball. But if we're speaking about offense, they just re-up Christian McCaffrey for 4 years. Debo's got 2 more years. Kittle has 2 more years. And Ayuk very well might be the odd man out. Now, could they come to a deal? Of course. Could this just be back and forth? This is how the game is played. I'll post this on social media. It'll get things rocking. But I have a sense that the 49ers have no intent of paying Brandon Ayuk $30 million a year. They are going to have to pay Purdy soon. What's this, his 3rd year? So, after next season, the conversations have to begin. they probably should have traded him before the draft to get compensation to affect this year's team. But if they decide to trade him, who would be interested in Brandon Ayuk? Well, the Commanders come to mind because he was talking to his former quarterback, Jaden Daniels, and they would love to put a star receiver around their rookie. Maybe they swap Terry McLaurin and a pick of some kind for Ayuk. It might be something. If I'm the Niners, McLaurin's making about what Ayuk is now, like 14, 15 million. I love Terry McLaurin. You put him on the Niners, I don't think their offense goes backwards one second. I don't know if the Niners would want another 15 million, to have that guy back. Maybe they'd rather have different kind of compensation. But if I'm Washington and I want to surround Jaden Daniels with the best talent, we'll bring his buddy in, kind of like Burrow and Jamar Chase, and see if magic can happen. Other teams come to mind, right? Buffalo could certainly use a number one. Baltimore, we love Rashad Bateman, but he's still a starter on that team, and it's kind of a do or die year for him. Maybe Indy with their young quarterback, Anthony Richardson, but they just paid Michael Pittman and they drafted Adonai Mitchell. Maybe the Chargers, they dumped all their receivers. I don't see Harbaugh, though, wanting to bring in a $30 million receiver, though Justin Herbert would be jumping up and down saying, if he's available, let's get him. But if I'm San Francisco, would you pay Brandon Ayuk $30 million, Spread Blakemore? He had a great year. He's good. He's very good.
I get that. There's a lot of other skill positions to spread the ball around on that San Fran team. I don't know, New England's top receiver, KJ Osborne,
right, but they're not in a position to contend. Like they don't.
Well, but do you want to get Drake May a wide receiver?
Maybe.
Who knows? To me, that's what I'm looking for. Receivers to get paid is who just drafted a quarterback that's on a rookie deal for the next 5 years. Because that's what led to the Jets extension, right? Is that they're going to have a JJ and Jets. They're going to have JJ on a rookie deal for the next 5 years. So they're not going to have to pay him. So now you can break the bank for Jets. So I don't know. I'm just tossing out ideas. But yeah, I don't think of Ayuk as like, oh boy, we got to extend him.
He's not on that same tier, right?
Yeah.
He's not on that tier of Chase, Jets, Hill. CeeDee Lamb's about to get JJ type money if the Cowboys figure out how to spread their money around. That'll be kind of interesting to follow. And I think if you're the Niners, you'd love to send him the AFC if possible. But if not, Washington doesn't seem like, although I do think Washington's a candidate for a worst to first move in the NFC East if Jaden Daniels is as good as I think he could be. So they may not be that far from contending.
I don't think Clemson Tiger guy is going to lose any sleep over Brandon Ayuk leaving. I don't think so.
Probably not. They've got enough mouths to feed over there. Other NFL news from yesterday. Are you a Hard Knocks guy? We've probably talked about this before. Do you watch Hard Knocks or the in-season version?
So I watched the Dolphins one last year, the in-season one.
Yeah.
I think the in-season one is better than the training camp one, personally. Just my taste, because it's actually meaningful games and meetings, and I know, like, Corey loves the cut scenes in the training camp one.
That's what that whole show is about. The summer version is the guy walks into the coach's office and gets the news that he's out.
Including Kevin O'Connell at one point.
Was he?
Yeah, he got cut on Hard Knocks at one point.
I don't think I knew that.
I'm pretty sure, yeah.
I'll
double check, but I'm like 99% sure.
I'm with you, though. I really enjoyed the Dolphins one because they were a compelling team that was in the playoff hunt. You weren't sure whether you could believe in them, but their offense was so good. And then, of course, they get stuck going to KC on a historically cold day. And for the South Florida team with a quarterback from the islands, how are they going to do? And they had just some really interesting personalities. It's one of the reasons I like that Van Ginkel character that came here.
Yeah.
Because they really spotlighted him on one show, and it made him easy to cheer for. I bring it all up because you may have seen that next season's team selected for the in-season version of Hard Knocks is not a team. It's an entire division. And if you would just say, all right, which division do you think they picked? Like, which one would you want to see? Like, what would be compelling? Certainly the NFC North
this year would be great.
Yes. I mean, we're going to be homers and think that anyway, but a lot of people believe this is going to be a really competitive division. You've got 2 rookie quarterbacks. We don't know if the one here will be playing. The show starts December 3rd. So you're getting the stretch drive of the NFL season, the final 4 or 5 weeks of the regular season. It also protects you if the team you choose, craps the bed at the end of the year. It doesn't, but now you've got 4 teams and the chances of them all, obviously. It's the AFC North, and that was the best division in football last year. All 4 teams finished above 500. First time that's happened. It was an easy choice, and there are great storylines. Who will be the Steelers quarterback then? Will it be Russell Wilson or Justin Fields? Will Justin Burrow be healthy? Will the Bengals be a contender like I think they will be? I always do. I picked him in the Super Bowl last year. Will Burrow be healthy, and will he be playing? What about Deshaun Watson and the Browns, who are outside of Watson built to contend right now? And we know the Ravens were the best team in the AFC last year until their usual playoff fall on their face situation. So I'm there for this. I'm excited for it. I think it's going to be fun. I enjoy it. I think it was a brilliant idea when they added it to the mix, and I think they picked the right division if they weren't going to pick ours. Ours would have been fun, too.
Yeah. Well, they have the Bears already for the training
Correct.
camp.
That's a good point.
So
That's a good point. They got the Bears for the preseason summertime deal.
I still can't believe how fast they turn those things around. And you can literally watch a Hard Knocks episode on Tuesday that chronicles the game
on Sunday.
2 days ago. Unbelievable how they do that. I have no idea how they do it.
I'd love to see just a special on what goes into that. Like how many people are tasked with editing that and how they figure that out. That would be fascinating for those of us that are into that sort of thing.
Yep.
All right, first Packer reference of the morning.
Okay.
Coming at 9:47.
That might be a new record for us, I think.
I feel
47 minutes in.
I think we're doing pretty well.
Yeah.
And I didn't ask for this. It wasn't on my sheet. So
did something happen?
You see my spiral? Well, you wouldn't have seen it unless you saw the tweet I saw. It was Adam Schefter speaking on a Milwaukee radio station this morning. Okay, so
all right.
I start preparing for a 9 to noon show, yesterday afternoon. Like that's kind of where I put my talkers together. Then as the night goes on and the morning, you sprinkle in things that come that you think, that might be interesting. Adam Schefter this morning told the Milwaukee radio station that he said, quote, "I don't think Jordan Love is taking less than Trevor Lawrence," which I can understand that. I don't blame him. I think that's where the number should start. We threw out, I don't know if it was Friday or Sunday when we were filling in, would you take Love or Lawrence for the next 8 or 10 years? And we can't answer that because we are not, we have a vested interest. I've seen 4 seasons of Trevor Lawrence, and it's been very up and down for a guy that was touted as the greatest prospect since Andrew Luck, and not all, his fault. He's had different offensive coordinators or coaches, I think every season, and they run different receivers there. He has not had the consistent, steady tutelage that Jordan Love got. And clearly from a prospect standpoint, Lawrence was eons ahead of Jordan Love. But I'd rather have Jordan Love the next 8 or 10 years. And if not, then you can maybe argue the other way. And I'm not going to say you're crazy. It's probably a 50-50.
Yeah.
I'd love a national poll on that to see if we're just being complete green and gold rubes.
Yeah, just take out Wisconsin and take out Florida and see where everyone else votes.
Exactly. Yeah. I don't even know if you have to take Florida away. I don't know if the fan base is that crazy. But the point is, to me, it's at least a conversation. And so if I'm Love's representation, the conversation started 55 a year like Lawrence got. Because, clearly to me, he showed enough as the season went on and the season ended, playing alongside the youngest core in football, that the potential's there. So that's the next domino. Maybe Tua. There was a report this morning that Tua and the Dolphins are on the same page, is I think the way they put it. And that's a tricky one with Tua's injury history and lack of postseason success. But the Dolphins are kind of in that spot the Cowboys are in. They're sort of similar. They're great quarterbacks. I would take either one of them. If I had to pick one of the two, I probably would take Dak over Tua. People forget Dak was like an MVP favorite most of the year last year. Without a great running game, he had CeeDee Lamb, but Dak's postseasons have made you sort of scratch your head a little bit. But both of those teams are kind of in a tough spot. We're like, we know these guys are quote-unquote franchise quarterbacks, but man, it hurts a little to throw $50 million a year at them. And the Cowboys have painted it to a point where they could lose Dak. He's an unrestricted free agent. No more tagging after this season if they don't get a deal done. He would walk out the door, and he would leave in a second. If he doesn't have a new deal this year, I don't see him sticking around. I know it's America's team and to be the quarterback of the Cowboys, but if someone else is going to throw $55, $60 million at Dak, he will take that in 1 second. So those are the three guys, and Schefter made it clear that Lawrence's deal is the benchmark for Jordan Love, and I can understand why. I did not. All right, so here's KFAN text line. People hear what they want to hear. So I'm already being PST nominated for saying that Jordan Love was considered the greatest prospect since Andrew Luck. I didn't say that. I said Trevor Lawrence was considered the greatest prospect since Andrew Luck. I didn't say that the guy drafted 24th or 25th was the greatest prospect out of Utah State. Listen to what I say and not what you want me to think that I have said. Jeez, that's from 612 guy. He even did a little emoji with the trophy next to PST. Yeah. Didn't say it.
Congrats, by the way.
Didn't say it. Yeah. I have only been nominated once in all the years of the PST.
I have the audio somewhere, but yeah.
No, you don't have to play it. We've heard it enough.
What was it again? Do you remember?
Of course I remember. Do I remember? I get tweeted about it all the time. I've told the story a million times. Should I tell it again? I'll tell it again.
Yeah, go ahead.
Late 80s. I'm the weekend.
Oh, yeah, I remember.
Weekend sports anchor at KAL TV in Austin, Minnesota. And I'm up here covering the Wolves. First season? Yeah, I think it was the inaugural season. They're playing in the Metrodome. And I still have the story I did on an old videotape because I'm doing my little stand-up in front of the camera after the game, like right as the game ends, camera guy, me, we're right by the tunnel where the players are running past me as I'm saying it. So it's got to be one take.
Yep.
Because if I flub, the next time I do it, there's no players running behind me. No Pooh Richardson, Tyrone Corbin. Nobody's running behind me. And so I did my little thing. But I had said, looking back, this is, I don't know how long ago on the Fan, 10, 15 years ago, whatever, that my recollection was I couldn't believe how many Kobe Bryant jerseys I saw in the crowd. Okay, Kobe wasn't born back in 88. What I clearly meant to say was the number of Magic Johnson jerseys I saw. They were everywhere. There were hundreds of Magic Johnson jerseys, and that stuck with me. I just said the wrong Laker great and was nominated, though I did not win. I didn't win any trophy. I didn't get any hardware. I don't remember how far I went in the PST for that statement, but I'm reminded of it.
I actually think you were nominated twice because I'm doing some digging in the audio.
Really?
In 2015, there was an entry for Sinykin, and the description is, Cowboy fans are insufferable. You might have got nominated for...
How is that PST worthy? What's more insufferable than Cowboy fans? Jamal, I got to let you go, bud. At 3.5 minutes of it was a Jamar call.
Yeah.
It was Jamar. Okay, so I get it. The point is, we think Cowboys fans are insufferable?
Yep.
Okay, now
of course that's the entry.
It's funny that it wouldn't even occur to me, like, wait, why is that PST?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's even kind of part of the bit. That explains exactly why I was nominated. Yeah, so that was the one time. But this one is not worthy. I didn't say it. Trevor Lawrence was considered the greatest prospect, I believe, since Andrew Luck. And to this point, he has not proven to be that. He just got paid like it. And I think the arrow's turning up. I like Trevor Lawrence a lot. But I don't know. Love or Lawrence, I just would love a national poll. Tell me, what would America say? I think it's close. I don't know. I have lots more NFL stuff, including the corner office asked me to come up with 5 nice things to say about the Purple. They wouldn't ask me to do that if I was filling in for any other show. But it's 9 to noon. It's the home of Skol. It's the home of Purple Pride. And so I have to play the game. So at about 11:15, after much studying, I I wore Google out trying to come up with 5 nice things to say about the purple, but I did it, and I'll share that with you at 11:15. But up next, very pleased and excited to welcome John Krasinski. His thoughts on the historical dominance of these Boston Celtics as they claim their 18th title, and what's next as the Wolves offseason officially starts with the NBA season ending. Johnny Athletic joins the program next on the